All right. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening to wherever it is in the world you are streaming here on Twitter as well as on YouTube. Oh, good. Got a nice, shitty quality stream. Oh, no, that's just the iPad. Okay. All right, people. A lot of moving parts here today. It has been quite hectic, as you can imagine. I'm going to allow people a couple of minutes the opportunity to join today's stream because we got a lot to go over. Busy day in the association. Out of nowhere, we go from zero trades to snowball to an avalanche, as I like to say around here. And that's I'm waiting a couple of minutes before we get to the main event of the day. Was it Anthony Davis going to the Washington Wizards? Nope. Jaren Jackson Jr. yesterday going to Utah? Nope. Kobe White going to Charlotte? Nope. Jared McCain going to Oklahoma City? Nope. The most important news of the day. Jackson Hayes getting suspended for a game without pay, by the way. Suspended for a game for an altercation with G Wiz, the mascot for the Washington Wizards. I have so many questions, and I've been spending the better part of the last 2 hours trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Those of you that are just finding out, once again, the mascot, which looks like, hold on, now I got to pull up a picture. G Wiz mascot. Here we go. Does this look like the face? Does this look like a face to you that is completely innocent? Hold on. Because to me right now, I can't say that it is. Okay. There you have it. All right. So let me just put this on the screen for a second. What's up there? All right. Everyone in the chat is here. Everyone's here. Okay. Now we can begin the show. I don't usually like come flying out of the gate because of it takes people a couple of seconds and minutes to join the stream. So I got to vamp for a little bit. What's happening? Adam Light. We'll get to all the serious news in just a moment. The secondary, tertiary news in just a moment. But for now, what you're about to witness is viewer discretion advised. There is going to be some violence on the screen. We're in an active. This was a Friday night game. I knew the chat would be on this one. All right. Hold on. Hold on. I gotta give me a second here. Why does Twitter not let you? so many comments in the chat. Free G Wiz. Free Jackson Hayes. All right, hold on. Bear with me, people. All right. Here's the video. So I went back into League Pass looking for this too in the broadcasting start. What you will see here is the footage now that I will be using in this court of law. Okay. So the arrow, I can't make it go any slower. So you're going to have to deal with the bit rate. Let's see, I'm looking at the stream. It's a little glitchy, but we'll just have to live with it for a little bit. Okay. So G Wiz is on the floor leading the cheerleaders and eventually the players out of the tunnel like he always does. There's a couple of questions I would like to ask. See if I can zoom in a little further. Is that better? Okay. He gets Kimbo sliced by Jackson Hayes down here. All right, so let's break this down. Leading the Wizards and the cheerleaders out of the tunnel. Eventually, he's obviously going back to put the flag away and do mascot things. So has anyone ever been inside of a costume like this? Because I used to rent these in college for Halloween. And I can tell you right now, when I got the one time I rented a duck and it looked like puddles at the University of Oregon. When you put the mask on, the headset, dude, you can only see, I'd say 35 to 40% of your normal vision because your peripherals are cut off by the giant headdress that you're wearing. So you can just imagine you're watching, walking, living, and breathing like this at all times. It is very difficult to see if someone is coming at like a 90-degree angle. So when I see this, I wonder if G-Wiz, who probably has pretty good experience being inside of the costume before, I was not a college furry, stop it. I rented the costume for Halloween because I wanted to be a duck. But my first thought here is he's running, he sees the tunnel, but he does not notice that Jackson Hayes is stretching in the corner. It's also dark out, the lights are off. And as much as everyone, of course, wants to rush to blame Jackson Hayes for this egregious act, first of all, we need to see what happened before this. What happened when they were running out? Did G-Wiz bump into him by accident? The context here requires the full process of running from the concourse in the tunnel onto the floor to see why Jackson Hayes is standing there in the first place. Was he lining up as if this is a football drill? Do they call it the Oklahoma drill? I never played football, but where two players line up and they essentially wrestle each other like a sumo match outside the circle. Is he in a 3-point stance, or I don't know the technical terms in football. Does he have his, how you line up on the line and then you explode? Is he waiting to target G-Wiz as he runs by? Or was he just down there stretching and then he feared for his own safety as G-Wiz turns the corner, starts sprinting towards him, likely does not see Jackson down there because of the headset and all of this. And then he's like, he's about to run into me. I'm going to have to decleat him to protect my own safety. And the result of which is him getting Kimbo'd into a cheerleader. Now, Dan Weinke did report that the mascot is okay. And the Wizards had a home game against the New York Knicks yesterday. And I'm pretty sure I saw G-Wiz out there. I don't know if it was the same person inside the costume or not, but the most important question here is, how did the NBA find out about this? They don't have employees in Secaucus that are staring at the screen, especially of a Wizards game. It's not on national television, watching pregame warmups and introductions to make sure that mascot and player safety is all the laws are being abided by. Somebody had to tell NBA headquarters that this happened. Was it G-Wiz? Was it the Washington Wizards? Was it game presentation staff? Was it somebody in the crowd? Was it a cameraman? Was it a cheerleader that caught shrapnel running out? Who told the NBA that they need to look into this? Because Jackson Hayes purposely shoulder checked our beloved G-Wiz. We know Jackson Hayes' history, okay? He's had some off the court issues, so everyone is always running to assume he's going to be the guilty party in moments like this. But because of the darkness and he's standing there in the corner, crouched over. Only one of two things I think are realistic here. The first of which is he's stretching and he feels like he's about to be ran into. Or number two, something happened before this, and then he was waiting for Gee Whiz as he ran by. He was in that Oklahoma drill positioning and was just waiting to Goldberg spear him the moment he came running by as retribution or revenge. So I need some more answers on this. I am not, something is astray. Something is not right here. And how this video also, because Bleacher Report does have, even though they don't have NBA, they don't have the same NBA license that they did as a part of the Turner deal, but the NBA still may have access to archives that occur before the game. Because I went back and I watched the streams for the Wizards and the Lakers through League Pass. And if you watch League Pass live, you will get plenty of this right here, which is guys just chucking it up, shooting the shit with teammates. If you turn it on 30 minutes before tip-off, you'll get some studio show, you'll get fans in the arena. But if you watch the replay on League Pass, it usually starts exactly 10 minutes before tip-off, where they come to the broadcast who are sitting on stools. Sometimes you get to see the player introductions, but considering that they were just welcoming the players onto the floor, this probably happened before any replays in NBA League Pass are what they're broadcasting to us. Is obviously not the full story. But I think just based on this video, also the camera angle doesn't do us any favors either. This is a sideline view. What we need is a camera, one of those that's in the corner or above the backboard, to show us the path that Gee Whiz is on as he is running full speed back to the tunnel. Because if another camera angle shows us that he was going to run over Jackson Hayes, even if Jackson for some reason had it out for Gee Whiz, he would need to defend himself in the ring at all times, is what we're told. So I can't tell from this angle if Gee Whiz would have eventually made contact with that Jackson Hayes. Can we all agree? Can we all agree that this is a mistrial at the moment until we have more sufficient evidence to suggest the context of why Jackson Hayes was there in the first place? What happened when he first ran out of the tunnel before running back into it? The path that Gee Whiz was on, if it was linear, if it was going to use Jackson Hayes as a hurdle, if he was obstructing his way back there, if it was intentional, if it was accidental, this video, all this does is make me ask more questions. This solved nothing. And I have to think that Jackson Hayes, who's going to be suspended without pay, a full game check by the NBA, that is something that if he feels like he's innocent, the Players Association will certainly file a grievance against. Who at the NBA saw this footage and determined it is worth going to battle with the Players Association over? There has to be more than this. There has to be, for us to make a more logical determination. Okay, chat. I'm sorry for rambling. I will now read your comments. But right? Am I right that this video does not determine anything as far as I'm concerned? My initial thought process before seeing the entry to the court is that Jackson Hayes was just stretching and felt concern for his safety. considering his history, everyone's always going to side with the damn furry. Vegan Barbie says this is a conspiracy to flood search engines regarding Jackson Hayes' assault. Oh my God. I need to go get tinfoil for that one. That's right. Mark McAndrews in the chat says he's on a path of a blind man. That's correct. I am telling you, I've been inside of one of those mascot costumes. Your field of vision is diminished significantly. And it's dark out. And someone is crouched below the radar. Think about how big those circles are inside of the mask costume. You can't see the floor unless you're looking down at it. Danny says Gee Whiz's route efficiency is explicitly a factor. This was a go route back to the tunnel. And to me, it looks like Jackson has at least 1 foot onto the court. So it's going to be my determination here that Jackson, at least in this context, was going to get hit by Gee Whiz if he just stood there without decleating him, that he was going to be ran into. He's got at least a foot on the N, right below the N in Washington, right here. He's got his right foot in the vicinity of that N, and Gee Whiz is coming on like a freight train with a giant ass flag. Did Jackson position himself there on purpose? Of course, that's a conversation for another day. But just using this video, he was going to get hit by Gee Whiz. The duck I wanted to be Puddles. Stop asking about the duck. The duck is a funny costume. Just a serious, stoic-looking duck with a hat. And you get the little belly and it shakes. You get the little shoes. It's a fun costume when no one knows who's inside of it. Now, of course, I feel bad for the cheerleader here who Gee Whiz gets launched into. And you have to think Gee Whiz, with all that padding in the costume plus landing on another human, would explain why he was okay from this, getting hit by a 7-footer who is lining you up. There's a dunk contest coming up with Jackson Hayes. Got to get some fun, goofy press out there. This is a conspiracy. Now the chat is cooking. Now the chat, flood search engines. Get everyone, and now everyone's going to want to watch the dunk contest because of the guy that decked the mascot. Now we're cooking. Look how big that flag. Think about the momentum with that flag there too. He could have potentially been impaled by that thing. Oh, there's the real conspiracy. Will Gee Whiz be a prop now in Jackson Hayes' dunk contest? I'm going to say no, because the NBA suspending Jackson Hayes without pay is a massive deal. And they had to be quite convinced. Some serious conviction is required to suspend him, not slap him on the wrists, not like warn him, not change the rules of warm-ups. They fined him. That's a huge deal. So I ask, who filed these charges? Who made the league aware that this happened? Is there a hotline similar to the bubble, the snitch hotline, that someone can call to notify the league of something that requires their attention? What is that number? This was in the middle, by the way. This was in the middle of what? 5 trades that happened between 2 p.m. Eastern, roughly 2 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Eastern. Trying to react in real time to all of these transactions that are being placed. You have certain teams today that are getting off of contracts and building for the future. The Dallas trade, right? Teams that are taking swings, trying to break this down with like legitimate official analysis of what transpired today. And then the NBA at NBA PR, the NBA communications channel, news dumps us with Jackson Hayes being suspended for pushing a mascot, something that occurred on Friday. And it's now Wednesday. That's 5 days. Call it 4 because it was night and morning. Call it 4 days for them to go back and watch that 5-second clip. What happened in those 4 days for the NBA to have to pay attention to this? Why was this not done within 4 hours? The hell happened? I want answers. Chat saying Gee Whiz has a direct line to Silver. So mascot, when I was working at the New Orleans Hornets, Hugo also like booked himself. He was his own entity in business. He reported to a vice president of game presentation, but for the most part had a lot of autonomy. Now these teams are run differently. So Gee Whiz and like Benny the Bull, I'm sure they have management teams around them, making sure all of their props and their skits are being organized because every second matters. So does he have a management team that's like, you know what, we're going to let the front office know about this? But now that it escalated, everyone's going to be thinking about every time you see Jackson Hayes that he's now the Gee Whiz guy. Did they want this attention brought to it? You can't just find someone without it making news because all of these salaries are of public consumption and knowledge. Are we sure there wasn't a second pusher? Oh, wait, was there a cameraman? What's the guy with the lanyard? You see the guy with the lanyard on? What's he doing? Okay, he doesn't stick a leg out. I thought he may have tried and tripped him. Jackson's definitely, that's of certainty that Jackson is in the way. He is going to get hit by Gee Whiz if he doesn't Kimbo him. That I'm willing to say with certainty now. I've seen it enough times. Maybe he placed himself there on purpose so that he had an excuse to set him up for a people's elbow. Okay, sorry. Stop. Chat's ridiculous. Do I think they have riders on their contracts and they weren't being fulfilled? Now we're getting deep. Oh, good point. Kay Lover says, hoping we get some footage from the crowd now that the story is bigger. Someone had to have a phone out. Man, that's tough though, because I mean, that's probably 15 to 20 minutes before tip-off. It's right before they start the broadcast with the broadcast crew sitting courtside, introducing the audience to the game tonight. This is right before that. Oh my God. What does Gee Whiz act? I can't even, I'm not even going to say it. Just read the chat. What does Gee Whiz actually stand for? Come on, man. What if the mascot was purposely trying to injure Hayes? Maybe he had the intention the entire time to knock out Hayes. Was he was he a secret agent sent by Secaucus, by Midtown Manhattan headquarters, so that Jackson Hayes would be traded from the Lakers? It's just so ridiculous. Oh, man. Sorry. A mascot running out with a flag is being filmed by at least a minimum of 1,000 people in the arena at any game. It's a Wizards game, but the Lakers were in town, so there were actually fans there. HL Hunenfeld says someone familiar with Hayes' pregame routine would know if that's his stretching corner. It could be a Lakers assistant coach. It could be a Lakers assistant coach or someone on their training staff, because everyone comes out there to stretch and warm up. And because he probably got his shots up already, he goes to the bench. Is that the Lakers bench? I assume that's the Lakers bench, because if it is, then he has all the more reason to be standing there getting ready for the game. Hayes was about to be traded to the Wizards, so Gee Whiz took him out, and now they have Anthony Davis. If Gee Whiz, oh my God, you just brought up a great. Can you imagine if Gee Whiz ends up doing this to Anthony Davis? Davis could be out for the year. Anthony Davis could be out for the season with Gee Whiz running around like this in his flag. If Anthony Davis were to make that sort of contact with Gee Whiz, he's toast. He's going to shatter into 1,000 pieces like the frozen Terminator. D Miles says, I really want to know the history. We need to go back and watch all of Hayes' previous games at Washington. There has to be more. Also, considering the context of, has Gee Whiz either trespassed? Has he trolled? Has he done something to Jackson Hayes that, man, I hate that mascot. I hate that mascot. I'm going to put myself in a spot and I'm going to pretend to stretch so that when he runs by, I can make up for something that happened. We don't have proof of that. It's all just part of this. This is why we need to put a moratorium on trades immediately to figure out the admissible evidence to this. I don't think he was just playing around with the mascot. No. That's an adult running full speed, recklessly, without vision in the darkness towards you. And if he were to bump into you and you get hurt, like, everyone would feel bad for you and blame the mascot, but that could affect your NBA career. You are a walking, breathing LLC that's likely profiting millions of dollars. This is so much. Vegan Barbie says saying Hayes had to do this is reminiscent of Desmond Bain throwing the ball at OG. Did anyone say he had to throw the ball at OG? No, he knew exactly what he was doing there. The problem is we don't have the same angles and understanding what transpired before this. Because if there is a reason, I can totally believe he did this on purpose. But all we have to work with is this one video. And now we need to discover if Jackson Hayes. Now I want to go back and watch every Jackson Hayes game in Washington for the past 2-3 years. If there's a moment where like he steps on G Wiz's ankle because G Wiz is doing some skit and he ends up, rolling it, that may provide some equity in the belief that this was more revenge and retribution than an accident and prevention, right? I could get down with that. We knew that the reason why Desmond Bain did that shit with OG was what led up to that fast break opportunity. And then there's also the history of Jackson Hayes that you have to factor into this too, in his off the court altercations. So this is right. I don't even care about the trades. This is all I'm going to be thinking about all night. And I need to go back and watch the last 2 years of Laker games at DC to determine if there's anything that potentially happened on camera. Even then, if you find something, you don't know what happened off camera. Anyway, does anybody have questions about the deadline that you'd like to discuss while we're here? We got about 20 minutes or so. Bain said he had to because he was falling out of bounds, but he really wasn't. Jackson looks like he veers right to even make contact with G Wiz, so he'll probably say he had to. You're right. So you're saying he put himself in a position purposely to make sure he was going to draw contact from the mascot so that he could wreck him. The Bulls have 10 guards now. I real quick on the Kobe White thing. So Detroit's able to acquire Kevin Huerter, but not Kobe White. Because that sure would have helped them out a lot. So Kobe goes from turning down his extension to play out this year with the possibility of making more. And now he's being traded to a team where last time I checked, they have LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Con Knuppel. Where is Kobe White fitting into this equation? He's fitting into the same role that Colin Sexton was playing. He'll get some minutes and some shot opportunities with the second unit, but Charlotte's doing the damn thing right now. Why would they mess with something that's not broken? So now you're really going to have to ball because you're owed a new deal at the end of the season when you're headed to free agency. I wonder how much he likes what just happened. I can't imagine that this is something Kobe is very fond of because his usage and playing time, unless LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Con Knuppel get hurt, Kobe White just found himself in an equally crowded backcourt as he had in Chicago with a team with the worst record. And he's essentially auditioning to see if he's worth paying the amount of money that he anticipated getting before the season started, which was the reason why he opted out. Or not, I'm sorry, not opted out, opted to not sign the extension. And a lot of these moves today, so the Chris Paul move, he gets traded to Toronto. He's going to get waived. The Clippers end up saving more money. Dallas ended up saving a ton of money today, maneuvering around the luxury tax and the aprons is essential. Brooklyn, too. These bad teams that are headed towards tanking not only have incentive to lose, but they also have incentive to take on bad contracts in exchange for draft compensation, as well as facilitating the major deals that cannot get done without them. A couple of examples in the past. Luka for Anthony Davis. Some of you think it's the Luka trade. Some of you think it's the Anthony Davis trade. No, sir. That was the Hood-Schifino trade because Utah had to step in and take Hood-Schifino for that deal to be legal and go through the process. Jarrett Allen, once upon a time, was sent to Cleveland so that a blockbuster could get done, and he was just a throw-in. Dallas, until today, DC, Brooklyn, Utah. These are going to be your places that open themselves up to this market because they know if we step in here and we be your third partner to try and skirt around those apron rules, which require you to trade the same quantity of player for the same quantity of player. You can't aggregate deals. If you need a third team involved, we will be that for you. Send us some second round picks. Second round picks are suddenly becoming coupons for like facilitating future deals that need to get done. It's just incentive to bring in a third team and say, take this contract, wipe it off at the end of the year. It won't influence your future books. But here's a second round pick for you to pick up the phone and just help us get to the finish line. Those second rounders are just fast passes at Disneyland. Ooh. Question in the chat, what happens with Kyrie now next season? I was thinking of fun coupons, but that was taken by the Wolf of Wall Street. So is it, someone fact check me on this, if I still have the Hell Wikipedia in the chat, Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis only played 26 minutes together since that Luka trade, which is unfathomable. It's a flabbergasting number. But considering that Kyrie is still hurt, he's a former number one pick from Duke, a vet that may look forward to mentoring Cooper Flagg as they try and expedite this rebuilding process. Oh, by the way, that is now the official worst trade in professional sports history in the continent of North America. Not even close. Now it's done. Now you can officially say it. Thank you. Farmer Lights in the chat confirms 25 total minutes. Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis were on the floor concurrently for the Mavericks since the trade. They ended up getting back more for zombie Anthony Davis than they did Luka. And I know those draft picks that they acquired are heavily protected. So they're kind of like, it's a fake first rounder, couple of seconds. It's Marvin Bagley and, a whole bunch of contracts. But you got back at Anthony Davis, who didn't play, and Max Christie in a pick. Like, if you actually want to get serious about it, it's not that much of a difference. Cooper Flagg was not, stop thinking everyone's like, you're an idiot because we got Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg was from hitting a lotto ticket, not because of the trade. You didn't get him from the trade. You can't include Cooper as a part of the Luka AD transaction. That was just luck. God, ugh. I wish I could put a poll in the chat. For those of you still watching, after considering the full context of the video, that the only video that we can see, not knowing the full context of everything else that could potentially have happened, just based on this 6-second clip, who is at fault? Gee Whiz or Jackson Hayes? Let's go to a jury on this. Wait, you're contradicting yourself in the chat, Joe. You said they got gifted Cooper. The trade doesn't look as bad. Not because they got gifted Cooper, the trade doesn't look as bad. That was gonna happen no matter what. You can't say because you traded Luka and then Anthony Davis got hurt, now you can go to the lottery. So the trade actually wasn't as bad because you sucked so much, you ended up getting a lottery pick back from it. Okay, chat says, Hayes, Gee Whiz is running blind. Jackson, he had some issues. Keep his hands to himself. Before, C Best says Jackson. Hayes, obviously. Smurf Man is guilty, according to Mark. So sounds like the chat is skewed towards Jackson's, it being the fine should be validated based on what you saw. Hayes 100%. All right. I'm just proposing that Gee Whiz would have hit Jackson Hayes if and potentially ran over him and injuring him based on the darkness and the lack of peripheral vision from the headset. Now, was he Machiavellian, positioning himself there on purpose so that he was waiting to watch this? I'm going to decleat that's TBD. What other trades? Oh, I found out. So unfortunately, I was trying to figure this out live on the show because when the Chris Middleton, because he makes $33 million, which is above the mid-level exception, and he gets involved in this deal to Dallas, he's going to be an obvious buyout candidate. And if Chris Middleton is bought out, what teams are allowed to go out there and sign him? And for some reason on the show today, I thought if you are a first apron team and not a second apron team, you can go through the waiver process of players that are above the mid-level exception, but that is incorrect. So Chris Middleton is not going to be able to be claimed on waivers or given a minimum contract by the Knicks because the Knicks are in the first apron. There's the Cavs, the Warriors, the Knicks. Those teams are not going to be eligible to be picking him off of waivers because of his previous contract. There are so many terms and conditions, by the way, with the new aprons and such. They're important, but I learned from Mark Stein on the show today that because Steph Curry's out for another game. Shout out to our partners at ProfitX, by the way. Let me just give them a quick look here. So because Mike Conley was traded again today, he can re-sign with the Timberwolves. I would have bet there is no legal route for Mike Conley to end up back with Minnesota at some point this season. But because he has been traded a second time, now that is permissible per Mark Stein. So now that Minnesota missed out on Kobe White, who else is out there for Houston or Minnesota to go out and sign in the market off of waivers or potentially trade for in the next 24 hours, two teams that desperately need a point guard? And since Middleton can't go to the Knicks, since Middleton can't go to some of these contenders that are in the apron right now, I wonder where his buyout destination would be. CP, oh, that's another factor too, people. So Chris Paul, if waived. So seeing what the Clippers did with the trade, it opened up 2 spots for Kobe Sanders and Jordan Miller on their 2-way deals to be converted to full-time NBA contracts. And that's nice when you have a 2-way deal that works out so well that you want to sign them for the rest of the year, potentially beyond. But one of the problems is you have to have a roster spot to be able to sign them to. And most of these teams carrying 15 guys, that's a little bit easier said than done. This is part of the reason why Jared McCain was traded from Philadelphia, was one, to free up a roster spot so that they can put Dominic Barlow onto the full-time payroll. Same situation as Kobe Sanders and Jordan Miller. And also, you have a clogged toilet of guys in Philadelphia, the Quentin Grimes, the Jared McCains. You go down the list there of Edgecombe, Maxey. They have so many dudes that Paul George has been suspended, but think of all the playtime distribution and where McCain fell in all of that despite his success last year before getting hurt. So he ends up going to Oklahoma City, who have more picks than banks have dollar bills. So spending 2 to 3 picks or whatever they did to acquire his services is great. But if you're Jared McCain, similar to Kobe White, it's great that I'm going to the team that's favored to win the NBA championship. How the hell am I supposed to ever get on the floor again? How the hell? There are lottery picks that aren't even seeing time for OKC right now. He is now like the internal competition between a McCain if Nikola Topic ever returns to the lineup. Aaron Wiggins. You know who's better at doing Jared McCain things than Jared McCain? Isaiah Joe. Now, this could be a Lou Dort insurance policy. If he were to leave and not come to terms with the franchise, Jared McCain can step in and eat up some of those minutes despite not being the same type of player. The most valuable currency in the game today are those 3-and-D guys that can catch and shoot, and Jared McCain is obviously quite elite at that. There's a lot of moving parts with all of this. And the only, like whenever a trade happens and they publish the graphic with the player's picture and it says breaking or traded, you gotta wait about 15 minutes to figure out, is that player going to be rerouted? How many picks are involved? What are the swaps and protections and all of those things? The purpose for just dumping a player like Mike Conley Jr. or Chris Paul, not only to free up a roster spot, but get salary tax relief and open up the optionality that is associated with getting your franchise underneath the first apron. Because a lot of these teams now can use their mid-level exceptions. They can make trades to fill in those places. I think Agbaji was filled into Brooklyn's mid-level exception in combination with a trade exception of some kind to help facilitate these deals. There was a $28.8 million trade exception created yesterday for Memphis from the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. And then another $20 million trade exception today, I think, goes to Dallas so that they can use those trade exceptions in the future to be taking on money and help those teams facilitate deals without needing or getting through those aggregation stipulations. How boring is this, by the way? But it's essential knowledge to figuring out who can be traded where. And it's really difficult to figure out on the fly when you don't have all the details. So I digress. How boring is that content versus this? Sorry. Nobody wants to hear the terms and conditions. They want this. Jaylen Brown out tonight for the Celtics. Womp womp. Tonight's action, if anyone cares about actual basketball games being played, here at the bottom of your screen, we'll go in reverse chronological order. No Harden, no Garland, no Zubats. This game stinks. Grizzlies and Kings, I'm not even going to waste my breath on. Thunder and Spurs, are you guys ready for the last crusade? What a game this is going to be. I'm so excited. Two best teams in the Western Conference, I think, going finally trying to settle the score. Shea, Lou Dort, Hartenstein, Chet Holmgren, J-Dub, Caruso, all out for OKC. Got rug pulled by the NBA. So Shea, by the way, he has an abdominal strain. He's going to be out for the next week. He's going to be out through the All-Star break. This also implies he's not going to be able to play All-Star weekend. He has only missed a couple of games, so he can afford to miss another 10 if I'm not mistaken. Perhaps this is a way for him to just get right before the run to the playoffs. But that was big news that dropped earlier today. The MVP frontrunner is going to be out for the next 2 weeks, but we are going to have a week off due to All-Star break. Pelicans and Bucks. That's where John Moran should land, by the way. Pelicans. Celtics and Rockets. Jaylen Brown is out. Kevin Durant is in. Raptors and Wolves. I think Anthony Edwards is officially a go. He was questionable. I thought I saw something pop up during the show. Anthony Edwards will play. Christian Brown in for the Nuggets tonight. Josh Hart out for the Knicks. Another night of hoops ahead. Does anyone actually care about the basketball being played, or is it just mascots being run over and trades? There will be a WAP investigation for G Wiz if I can go find some additional context from previous encounters between G Wiz and Jackson Hayes. Because all we have is this 6-second clip that I can't tell if Jackson Hayes is conspiring, waiting for G Wiz to come running out. Just in the moment, I can say with certainty that Jackson Hayes would have been ran into. Now, whether he positioned himself there on purpose or not is a different story. Yeah, the Knicks, the best game of the night by far is Knicks and Nuggets about to tip off here momentarily. Got most of the starters on the floor. Knicks are on a 7-game winning streak. Yeah, and they just decided to sneak in that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander news. And also the Jackson Hayes suspension out of nowhere. 2 news dumps in the middle of trade madness earlier today. On that note, people, we're about to tip off at MSG, so I'm going to say goodbye. But next time I see you, it will be Friday. That'll be roughly a day after the trade deadline is concluded, and we can recap everything that went down since then. All right, folks, that was a show. I'm exhausted. This has been a long day. I haven't even left the apartment yet. Just news kept coming in, doing shows and preparing and catching up and trying to educate myself on what's actually happening. It's hard, man. We had a police chase earlier, too. It was a 5-minute chase. It was a good ending. So we'll watch it back next time there's a live episode. It was a 5-minute chase that resulted in a entertaining, newsworthy climax. GG's in the chat. See you guys later.